Accessing peace. Existing without violence, with the ability to calmly resolve conflict. Downloading love. An overwhelming, deep, positive affection towards others. Activating liberty. Living your life as you see fit without infringing on the lives of others.
Welcome to Peace, Love, Liberty Radio. Online at fppradio.com. I am your host, Darryl W. Perry, the Liberty Penguin, the Wombat, the uncut cocaine of libertarianism. And it's that day of the week where I answer your questions. That's right, it's Friday. It's the Ask Me Anything. And you can always send questions using the anonymous, if you want it to be, contact form at ama.fppradio.com. That's right, that contact form, if you want it to be anonymous, it can be anonymous. You don't have to give a real name. You don't have to give a real email address. But you do need to provide a name and an email address. Again, doesn't have to be yours. And then just ask the questions, and I will answer the questions. And this week I only have one, and this is one of those topics where, as I sometimes do, when I only have one question for the Ask Me Anything, we do something kind of like a deep dive. And what do I mean by deep dive? Well, we're just going to, dive into the topic at hand and explore it a little bit. So the question says, I recently saw in the FPP newsfeed that Illinois had instituted automatic voter registration for all known residents of the state. Several other states have passed or are passing similar motor voter laws that automatically enroll all driver's license applicants. What do you think of these initiatives? Well, first, let me sort of explain why this popped up in the FPP newsfeed. FPP being Free Press Publications, sort of the parent of FPP Radio. And there's content that gets brought in, aggregated from elsewhere, one of those locations being Ballot Access News. And yes, Ballot Access News had a story about Illinois Governor Bruce Rauner saying that at the time that the story came about, saying that he would sign this bill into law. He has since actually signed the bill into law. So that's why that popped up in the newsfeed. And we'll delve into automatic voter registration a little bit deeper here in just a second. Secondly, there's a slight misconception, for the lack of a better term, here. Motor voter and automatic voter registration are not the same thing. Motor voter is an initiative that was passed back in the 90s when Bill Clinton was president to make it easier for people to register to vote. So with motor voter, and there are, I believe, 45 or 47 states that are part of the motor voter. New Hampshire is one of the handful that does not participate in motor voter. New Hampshire is where I live. So with motor voter, what happens is when you go to get a driver's license, either for the first time or you've, say, moved from one state to another, you need to, transfer the license, or you just go to renew your driver's license. With motor voter, they will ask the question, would you like to be registered to vote? So it's an opt-in. With motor voter, it is still opt-in. What the automatic voter registration is doing is making voter registration opt-out. And some of the states, and I've got info from the Brennan Center about this, some of the states are doing it when you get your driver's license. Others are, doing it some kind of different way. North Dakota actually does not even have voter registration. So you might be asking the question, well, so does that mean that nobody is registered to vote in North Dakota? Well, technically, nobody is registered to vote in North Dakota, but everybody that is a resident of North Dakota and has been such for at least 30 days is eligible to vote. But they do not, in North Dakota, they do not have a list of, here's the registered voters. And I'll save my answer for just a little bit because, again, I do want to do the deep dive here. And I will ultimately answer the question, what do I think of these various initiatives, the automatic voter registration, the motor voter? And I would say of the two, to where it's opt-in with motor voter or opt-out with the automatic voter registration, I like the idea of opt-in better. But you know what? I'll go ahead and answer the full thing. I really like the idea of how North Dakota does it to where they don't have voter registration at all. Now, I'm not a fan of them using the resident term, and I could explain that somewhat in depth because in New Hampshire, we use domicile, meaning if you live there, you spend the majority of the year in New Hampshire. It is your domicile. Your domicile can be a legally distinct place from your residence. And there are some people that try to say, no, they have to be the same. But New Hampshire statute says that if you claim residency in another state for any reason, you are not a New Hampshire resident. So if you claim residency in a state for the purpose of having a driver's license, but you otherwise live in New Hampshire for, just say, 300 days out of the year, you are domiciled in New Hampshire with a residency somewhere else, you should be allowed to vote where you have your domicile. That is, that's my position. And again, I'll deep dive into this automatic voter registration. Again, information from the Brennan Center and then some info specifically about what's going on there in Illinois. But if I had my perfect system, no voter registration, you vote where you live based on domicile, not residency.
It is the year 91,001 BCE. Witness humanity's origins in Hyperchronius, a classic role-playing game for Windows PCs, with a story like no other game before. A liberty-oriented experience that is not to be missed. Go to zog.ninja to get your copy of Hyperchronius today. Use the code FPP to get $1 off. Hyperchronius, zog.ninja, code FPP.
You can support FPP Radio by joining the Fans program. Fans are friends, allies, and numerous supporters. Fans help FPP afford to produce more original content. You can join the Fans program for as little as $3 per month through Patreon and get perks like ad-free versions of FPP Radio News and Peace, Love, Liberty Radio. To learn more or to join the Fans program, visit fans.fppradio.com. That's fans.fppradio.com.
Hi, I'm Nick Hazelton from the Anarcho-Yakutalism podcast, and you're listening to Peace, Love, Liberty Radio.
Welcome back to Peace, Love, Liberty Radio, online at fppradio.com. I am your host, Darryl W. Perry, the Liberty Penguin, the Wombat, the uncut cocaine of libertarianism. And I'll get back into the Ask Me Anything here in just a second. But first, I want to make sure that I tell you about the wonderful people at Roberts & Roberts Brokerage. For over 40 years, they've been a trusted source for buying and selling precious metals like gold and silver. They also have platinum and palladium available. And because they're such a forward-thinking company, they accept Bitcoin for all precious metal purchases, and they've even permanently removed the minimum purchase amount for all orders paid in the digital currency. So pick up your phone, pause the show, but not until I give you the telephone number. Otherwise, you don't know why you're pausing the show. So after I give you the number, 800-874-9760. That's 800-874-9760. Pause the show. Call Tim Fry at Roberts & Roberts Brokerage. Get some knowledgeable advice on buying and selling precious metals and a forward-thinking approach to new technologies. Or maybe you don't want to talk to somebody on the phone. You want to do it from the comfort of your living room, your bedroom, your bathroom, your porch, on the beach, wherever. Maybe you're, butt naked and don't want to deal with humans. That's fine. You can go to rrbi.co. rrbi.co. So if you pause to make that telephone call, you done with the phone call yet? All right. So press play. Although technically, you would have heard all of those other things because you probably would have pressed play once you hung up. But either way, 800-874-9760 or online, rrbi.co. Let's get back into the question and again do this deep dive into more about the automatic voter registration. So far, there are 10 states, with Illinois becoming the 10th, plus the District of Criminals that have adopted, not necessarily implemented, but adopted automatic voter registration. 32 states have pending legislation. And this, again, from the Brennan Center, was updated just a few days ago to reflect the new information about Illinois. They say automatic voter registration is a new reform that will modernize voter registration and dramatically increase registration rates. It's gaining momentum around the country. 10 states and the District of Criminals have already approved the policy. So far in 2017, 32 states have introduced legislation to implement or expand on automatic registration. And one more state has an automatic voter registration bill that was carried over from 2016. Now, the carryover of legislation, that's something that differs from state to state, where some states will not allow legislation to be carried over from one biennium to another. And there are some states where the bienniums begin in the even year, not the odd year. So I believe it is Louisiana and New Jersey, and there might be another couple of states that elect their legislatures this year, where most states will wind up electing their legislators either every presidential election cycle or every midterm cycle, or some states elect their legislators every 2 years, hence the term biennium. They then list or link over to a list where you can see all of the bills that have been introduced in 2015 and 2016. Now, automatic voter registration makes two transformative yet simple changes to voter registration. Eligible citizens who interact with a government agency are registered to vote unless they opt out. The agencies transfer voter registration information electronically to election officials. These two changes create a seamless process that is more convenient and less error-prone for both voters and government officials. This policy boosts registration rates. They claim that it cleans up the rolls, makes voting more convenient, and reduces the potential for voter fraud, all while lowering cost. Now, one problem that I could possibly see here is, let's say you live in some place where the sewer bill is handled by some local government entity, and you wind up giving your full first, middle, and last name. But the driver's license location, you gave your first name, your middle initial, and the last name, or vice versa. So, well, now we have two different people listed with very similar names, same birth date, and same address, but it's possible that that's two different people. So I could foresee some slight problems, especially if there's poor communication between the government officials. Could also wind up seeing somebody being, investigated for voter fraud when there is none, just because of, one of these errors of they didn't use the same form of their name, with two different government agencies, and then got registered to vote twice through no fault of their own. So let's give some history on automatic voter registration. Oregon became the first state to pass automatic voter registration in March 2015, where eligible citizens who had a driver's license, except for those who declined, were automatically registered to vote. And again, this is different from motor voter, to where with motor voter, you have to opt in. Automatic voter registration is an opt-out. The state of Oregon has already seen significant registration increases since implementing the policy in January 2016. California, with an estimated 6.6 million eligible but unregistered voters, was the next to pass automatic voter registration, adopting the policy in October 2015. And let's talk about California just a little bit, because California is one of the places that gets brought up a lot on why various reforms should be rejected. So, again, we'll continue with our deep dive here on the Ask Me Anything of Peace, Love, Liberty Radio.
Cell 411 is a free app for Android and iOS that replaces government-controlled 911. Cell 411 allows you to preset a group of friends or private organizations to show up in any emergency. Cell 411 is a nightmare for the state because it proves their so-called services aren't needed. Cell 411 has had thousands of installs, and of course it's covered by the BIPCOT no government license. Cell 411 because your friends won't shoot you when you're in trouble. Without the government, who would build the emergency services? You and Cell 411. Get it today at getcell411.com. That's getcell411.com.
When you hear the word lobbyist, you probably think about greedy corporations, but not all lobbyists are the same. Some are fighting for the freedoms you hold dear. Liberty Lobby LLC is doing just that in New Hampshire, working hard to represent you, not some special interest group. You can help by going to libertylobby.info, where your contribution will give us the tools we need to ensure that your voice is heard. Visit libertylobby.info today to find out more.
You're listening to Peace, Love, Liberty Radio with Darryl W. Perry.
Hey, welcome back to Peace, Love, Liberty Radio. I am your host, Darryl W. Perry, the Liberty Penguin, the Wombat, the uncut cocaine of libertarianism, answering your questions. And again, you can send those anonymously, pseudo-anonymously, or just, non-anonymously. That means, you would give me your name, your actual email address, if you want to, ama.fppradio.com. Talking about automatic voter registration. California passed automatic voter registration, or rather adopted automatic voter registration, October 2015. And California, again, it's one of the states that I know for a fact the Secretary of State in New Hampshire points to California as a reason not to adopt certain policies, such as making absentee voting easier, to where he'll point and say, well, California adopted, early voting, no excuse absentee back in this year, and their voter turnout has dropped. Well, also about that same time, California implemented what they call top two, meaning that there are only two candidates on the general election ballot. Write-ins are prohibited. Well, yeah, when you eliminate people's choices, they're not going to show up to vote. When you live in a place like Vermont or Minnesota, where you typically have more than two parties that are on the ballot, and typically have more than two parties that wind up electing members to the legislature, your voter turnout tends to be a lot higher. Yeah, surprise, surprise, when people have choices, they make them. When you take away people's choices, they're like, screw this, what difference does it make? So this, again, where California is just, automatically registering people to vote. And then you've got people that say, what's the point in voting? Because I've got, D-bag A and D-bag B running for this office. I don't like either of them, and I can't write somebody in. Screw it, I'm not voting. That just sort of skews the voter turnout even more. Continuing on again with info from the Brennan Center, 2016 was the biggest year yet for automatic voter registration. West Virginia and Vermont legislatures both passed AVR with strong bipartisan support, and I believe in Vermont it actually had tripartisan support, again, because they have progressives, Democrats, and Republicans all in their legislature. And in both states, the bills were promptly signed into law in April of last year. Connecticut approved automatic voter registration in May. They did so administratively, not legislatively. Georgia began implementing an administratively approved policy in the fall of 2016. In November, the District of Criminals, the city council there, unanimously passed AVR that the mayor signed the following month. The Illinois and New Jersey legislatures also approved automatic voter registration in 2016, but both bills were vetoed. In November of last year, voters in Alaska directly approved the policy. Alaskans passed a ballot measure to institute automatic voter registration through the state's permanent fund dividend, a sum paid by the state to all eligible residents. That's the oil money thing that they get, to where if you've lived there for a certain amount of time, you wind up getting a check. So they're saying if you get a check, you're registered to vote. Skipping down a little bit here, momentum carried into 2017 with Colorado approving the policy administratively and began implementing it at all DMV offices earlier this year. The Nevada legislature passed a bill in March, but the governor vetoed. Since the bill was originally introduced in the legislature through a citizen petition, it will now appear on the state's 2018 general election ballot. Now, this is something interesting to where apparently in Nevada, citizens or voters can petition legislation into the legislature. Very interesting. Definitely want to learn more about that. In July, Rhode Island Governor Gina Raimondo signed a bill implementing automatic voter registration there. And again, Illinois governor signed that at the end of August. We are now in September. Again, the link to all of the articles that I mentioned will be in the show notes, so the info from the Brennan Center will be in the show notes. Jumping over now to Crane's Chicago Business, I believe this is a business journal. They actually have an opinion piece here titled "A Win for Democracy as Illinois Embraces Automatic Voter Registration." And again, my position, if it was not clear earlier, is that I don't like automatic voter registration. And I find motor voter to be preferable to automatic voter registration because then it's an opt-in, not an opt-out. But if I could, come up with my own perfect sort of scenario, it would be a mix of New Hampshire voter qualifications with the lack of voter registration that they have in North Dakota, to where they do not keep a list of registered voters. It's just if you live here and you have lived here for X number of days, then you are eligible to vote. And again, I would like to see see them adopt the New Hampshire domicile of, yep, you live here, good enough, and no number of day requirement. Stay tuned. There's more here on Peace, Love, Liberty Radio.
Are you tired of governments murdering people around the world? Stop using their money. There is an alternative. Bitcoin is a stateless, free market, non-political currency. Bitcoin cannot be inflated or controlled by any government. By using their money, you are helping the state. Stop doing it. You have an incredible alternative available now. Learn it, use it, spread it. Get started with Bitcoin at weusecoins.com. That's weusecoins.com. Why do they hate us? Is libertarianism compatible with Islam? Davi Barker answers these questions and more in Voluntary Islam and Other Essays. He advances the voluntarist cause with analysis of the confluence of values between Islam and libertarianism, as well as contemporary movements from the Tea Party to the Arab Spring. Voluntary Islam by Davi Barker is available from Amazon.com and all major bookstores.
You're listening to Peace, Love, Liberty Radio, online at fppradio.com.
Welcome back to Peace, Love, Liberty Radio, online at fppradio.com. You know, I was going to jump in, start reading some of the article here from Crane's Chicago Business. Again, I think it's a business journal of some sort. I will post the link in the show notes, but, you know, an inner voice in me, plus something that's mentioned in this article, has caused me to want to kind of go off track a little bit. Not really off track, but just sort of, you know, divert the conversation to where there are some people that say it's already too easy. It's too easy to register to vote. To where, you know, just you say that you live here and you go to the city clerk, and that's what you have to do in New Hampshire. You have to present yourself physically to the city or town clerk, and then either, you know, provide some documentation or fill out a stack of affidavits saying that, you know, I swear that the info that I've given you is true. And there are some people saying that's too easy. But yet in most states, you go down to the post office, you pick up a voter registration form, you fill it out, you drop it in the mail. I think it should be easier to register to vote. You should not have to, you know, take an extended lunch break to go to your city or town office, or God forbid you live in one of these small towns with less than 500 people. Hell, some of them with less than 5,000 people. Town office is open maybe 10 hours a week and on really weird hours. Oh, yeah, it's every other Tuesday from 6 to 8 and Fridays from 10 to 2, and then, you know, this, that, and you got to figure it out. And, you know, you're jumping through hoops just to try to, you know, be able to register to vote, and it should not be difficult. But there are some people that think that, you know, like, it's already too easy. We need to go back to where you had to own real property, and you had to, you know, have an estate and have, you know, like a certain amount of belongings and, you know, be related to the right person. And, well, you have to be a man. Nope, doesn't matter, young miss, that you own an estate and all of this. Nope. So there are some people that want to go back to this white male landowner gets to vote sort of thing, and I disagree with that. And again, I know I've said it before, democracy is absolutely horrible. It's the worst way to come up with ideas for making decisions. I would love to see democracy go away, but as long as we have it, it should be easy to participate. Don't forget, every Friday I answer your questions. Send those over using the contact form, ama.fppradio.com.
The podcasts of FPP Radio are licensed under Copy Heart. We believe that copying is a form of flattery and do not abide by the copyright laws. Those laws serve to restrict the flow of ideas which no one can really own. Copying is an act of love. Love is not subject to law. If you enjoy the show, consider joining the Fans program and get perks like ad-free versions of Peace, Love, Liberty Radio and FPP Radio News, and also get a copy of the monthly newspaper FPP News. To learn more or to join the Fans program, visit fans.fppradio.com.